Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I am Drew Carter from the Office of Admission, and I'm so glad you're here tonight. And I'm so glad to have three awesome panelists with me here tonight. Before we get started, two quick housekeeping notes. Closed captioning is available. It's the CC button down at the bottom. Also, Q&A is available, so please submit any questions you have in the Q&A, and I will do my best to ask them as we go along through the webinar. Speaking of asking them, Miley, let me start with you. You get my first question tonight. You're a first-year student at Holy Cross. Can you tell me what it was like to pick your first round of classes? You're about like 5 weeks into your first semester at Holy Cross. How did you know what classes to take? Did someone help you sign up? What was it like to sign up for your first round of classes?
Yeah, so I met with my Gateways advisor over the summer, and he kind of helped just guide me in the direction because I didn't really know what I was supposed to take in regards to like the common requirements, like how I should fulfill those at all. But I was kind of just told like follow what you might think you might be interested in. For me, that was in the psychology direction. But otherwise, he kind of just gave me advice about what classes I might be interested in as a first year. And we talked about the things that I like, the things that I want to pursue in the future. So I kind of just took that advice and looked online as well to see all the course catalog stuff that I might want to use. And honestly, like signing up for the classes wasn't as stressful as I thought. I thought it was going to be super chaotic and like I wouldn't get any of the classes I wanted, but relatively easy, just putting it in my backpack and signing up. So it was actually a breeze.
And did you, when you were in high school, like let's say during your senior year, did you have an idea about what you wanted to study in college?
Yeah, I had always been interested in psychology or something in the forensics field, but I was really interested in psychology. So my goal was to take an intro to psych class first to start off with as my like one class that I knew I wanted. And then from there, I kind of just looked the catalog and pick classes I thought would interest me.
Callie, let me ask you a question as a sophomore at Holy Cross, as a second year student. Um, some high school students don't know what an advisor is, or what an advisor does. Is that who is this person? Where do they exist on the Holy Cross campus? Can you tell us who your advisor is and like who they are and what your relationship is like with them?
Yeah, so my advisor now is the same advisor that I had my freshman year. She's a teacher in the biology department. I'm currently a biology major. So I actually had her as a teacher, but that was not how you're assigned an advisor. But I got to know her through different meetings. Like we are required to meet with your advisor as a first year student at least twice in your first semester. And she just gets to know who you are as a student and as a person and becomes somebody that you can rely on to ask questions. And I found it really helpful to have somebody who I kept meeting with and was a very constant figure in my first semester of college, and it continues to be, and I still use her frequently to ask questions and help me with my course of study at Holy Cross.
Callie, I'm gonna ask you a question that just came in the Q&A as Ruben types an answer as well. How many classes do you take at a time at Holy Cross?
So you can take 4 classes at a time. That's standard. All students take at least 4 credits of classes per semester. As you move on through Holy Cross, you can take 5 with the approval of your dean, but currently I'm taking 4.
4 is enough. Is that what I'm hearing?
4 is definitely enough, especially at Holy Cross.
Holly, let me ask you, because you're the veteran member of our panel tonight, can you just talk me through the arc, like high school senior Holly, what did she think she wanted to study, to first year student Holly to second year student Holly? I'm not looking for the Iliad out of you, but like just a little bit of an arc of the narrative of the things you wanted to study and where you're at right now.
Thanks, Drew. That's such a great question. So senior year of high school Holly is obviously very different than junior year of college Holly. But I will say I have stayed very similar in terms of my academics. I wanted to major in history when I came into Holy Cross, and I was exploring that department pretty deeply, even with my first year advisor. And then I decided that I wanted to declare history as my major during the second semester of my freshman year. And that was a really great opportunity for me because then I was able to be placed with another advisor within the history department. In addition to studying history, I found that the Holy Cross curriculum is just great because in addition to what you do for your major and or minor and or concentration, you can really do a lot at Holy Cross, which is nice. You're able to explore different departments in academics because of our liberal arts core curriculum.
Ira, can you talk me through, I mean, you talked about this process of signing up for your first semester's worth of courses. Can you talk me through like what you're taking right now and what you're liking? What class is your favorite right now?
I'm currently taking Intro to Psych, Intro to Anthropology, Chinese 101, and then my Modswat course. And personally, my favorite is definitely my Modswat course because it's called The Origins of Heroic Ambassadors. And basically comics and like Marvel, that's like a big part of my life. So my whole Modswat is basically focused on reading comics and analyzing them. And I already know next semester we're going to be doing film analysis and even reading like manga and more comics, which for me is just super interesting. And it really pertains like a passion I really like. So I'm super glad that I was able to get that Modswat.
Is that something you thought you'd be doing in college when you were back in high school?
No, not at all. Like obviously watching Marvel movies is a side hobby, but thinking about really like looking at the origins of them and studying my favorite superheroes was I never thought I would ever be doing that.
And Callie, I have a question for you. Actually, I'm going to ask you a question that came out of the Q&A, and it says, in biology major, are labs considered a course or are they part of a course that you take?
So labs are considered a part of the course that you take. So if you take a biology class, that class is considered 1.25 credits, and that 0.25 comes from the lab that you're required to take if you take the lecture. But it is a whole other class that you have to sign up for. So you have to carve out a time in your schedule and find a lab that works for your schedule, and you will go once a week, and you get assignments for that lab as well, but it is considered part of the biology class or chem class or whatever class you're taking that has a lab.
Holly, I'm going to ask you a question from the Q&A because you've been here the longest. Do advisors and even faculty sometimes help you pick which classes to take, tell you which ones that you might like or you might be successful in?
Yes, so it really depends on the department which you're majoring or minoring in. In addition to my history major, I'm also doing a film studies minor. So I found that with history, I have a little more leeway in terms of the classes which I take. Obviously, no matter what you take, you'll have specific requirements for your major, which will break down in different ways. So with history, I found that I've been able to kind of take what I would like, with a couple of exceptions being like, we have a pre-industrial requirement for the history major, so you have to take 2 classes which are considered early modern era. But besides that, my advisor hasn't put like specific classes that I'm required to take in front of me before. But with my film studies minor, since film classes are offered in very specific semesters at Holy Cross, my advisor for the film minor has made me aware of when certain courses are being offered and when I should be taking them. So overall, it really just depends on your advisor and what you end up studying at Holy Cross. But you do have a lot of liberties that you can take in terms of what classes you choose.
Great. Callie, can you tell me, you're in your 3rd semester now at Holy Cross, can you tell me something that has surprised you about college academics and courses or faculty, or just something that really surprised you that you didn't expect or even know when you were in high school?
Something that surprised me was how willing professors are to work with you and they want you to learn and experience a lot about academics and really get engaged with your class. It's less about how well can you do on this test, how well can you perform on this paper. It's more about how can we make you better and how can I help you. So a lot of Holy Cross professors want to meet with you and encourage office hours and want to form a relationship with you so that they can get to know you as a student and you can get to know them and their teaching style. And I found a lot of Holy Cross classes encourage discussion, encourage collaboration, and it's less about the assignment and more about what can you get out of it. And in my own high school, that wasn't always true. So I feel like coming to Holy Cross, I was a little bit surprised by that and have been really happy that that's how academics work here, because it works for me and it helps me learn better, and it gives me a broader range of study. Like I feel like I can engage with a lot of my classes, and that's how I found different interests in different fields, because I was able to explore them in more depth than I did in high school.
I mean, you described this pretty awesome Montserrat class. And sometimes I think we in the Holy Cross world gloss over Montserrat, and just people in the outside world don't necessarily know what it is. Can you just talk about this class and who's in the class, and what that class is like, what it's all about?
Yeah, so every first year is enrolled in a Modswat class. They typically get to put their favorite top 6 out of all the choices and then get enrolled into one. So obviously I talked about mine. I was lucky enough to get enrolled one that I was really passionate about, but all the Montserrat classes are super interesting. I would have been happy to take any of them. The entire class is made up of just freshmen, which I find really special because everyone is in the same boat coming in. Everyone wants to meet new people. Everyone's a little bit nervous about taking classes for the first time here. So being in a class that is, first of all, small, but not, and also just freshmen that are all antsy and nervous about coming in as a first year, it's kind of comforting, and it's really fun, honestly, because it's not just about the rigor of it. It's also about just life skills and doing, like I just did a 10-minute presentation on a superhero, and yes, that was fun, but also it really helped me build confidence in my speaking skills. Also, they typically group you based on your cluster in the dorms. So for me, I'm in the Global Society cluster, so I live in Brooks Hall, and the majority of people there are in the Global Society cluster. So it's kind of nice seeing people that are taking a similar class to you within your dorm, because it just builds like a bond as well between you and your other classmates.
Callie and Holly, you guys have both had a little more time on campus than Miley has. Can you just each tell me what your favorite classes at Holy Cross have been? And Callie, we'll start with you.
Sure. So one of my favorite classes so far has been my religion requirement. I was a little bit nervous about taking that class because I haven't had any religious education before, but the course was called Theology of Mental Illness. So we read a lot of psychology books. We talked about mental illness as a disease and about how it's interpreted culturally. And then we looked at it through the eyes of the church and how historically it was viewed. And it was a really great class. It was very informative, and it was discussion based. So I got to meet a lot of classmates from various years, because all 4 years of students were represented in this class. And I really enjoyed the professor, and the content was really interesting, something I was not really expecting. I tend to be more geared towards science classes, and I really like those, but taking this class was a surprise, and I really enjoyed it.
How about you, Holly?
I feel like there are a lot of different courses I could say, but the one that jumped out to me the most to talk about was my philosophy course, which I took last spring. So one of our requirements at Holy Cross is to take a philosophy class, and there was one course which stood out to me that I wanted to take last semester called the Philosophy of History. And it was a really cool class because I was able to do some historical analysis and learn about the historiography of philosophy, which is great for my major. And we read a wide range of philosophers, starting with Herodotus, and we finished up with Kant. So as someone who had never taken a philosophy class before, I didn't really know what to expect. And it was a really great topical class where I was able to explore a lot of different philosophers and hear about them from a historical sense rather than a pure philosophical perspective.
Miley, you've just in the last certainly 6 months made this transition from high school classes to college classes. What's that transition been like? But did it meet your expectations? Has it been much harder, much easier, much scarier? Can you talk about that?
I always had the notion that college classes were like incredibly hard, like super, super hard. And I was super worried that I wouldn't be able to handle that. But honestly, there is so much support on campus, like the counseling center I've gone to, and even just talking to my advisor and my own friends, that it has made that adjustment way easier than I really had thought. Obviously, it's different balancing high school classes versus college classes, which I have found myself to be somewhat struggling with a little bit. but I think that time management, it teaches you time management and organization. And I've learned valuable lessons already, even being at campus for such a short time, and how to manage my time and basically like working on like my priorities. And but just in general, I have found it a bit easier than what I had expected. So, and I think that that can go for a lot of students. It's just about knowing who's there, that you have support there, and trusting yourself.
Callie, this is a question from the Q&A. So you take 4 classes at a time. How many are from your major? How many are from outside of your major? How do you balance that?
So I'm currently taking 2 courses that fulfill major requirements and 2 courses that don't. I actually found it really easy to balance your major courses with non-major courses because you do take 32 classes at Holy Cross. And they go by fast, but your major usually doesn't require more than half of that. So you have a lot of room in your schedule to take anything you want. I am enrolled in biology and chemistry right now, so they both have a lab, which takes up a lot of time. But my other 2 classes are the opposite, sociology, and I'm taking an education class. So I find that it's quite easy to balance your schedule, especially if you talk to an advisor and you talk to your professors who are helping you decide what classes to take and what path you might want to go down. And I enjoy all my classes because you find that your major ones tend to be ones that you want to take.
We have a fun question here from the Q&A. I love this one. What's the best part of having an advisor?
I think Miley really was great touching upon the different resources on campus. And I have to say, having an advisor is just like having another resource / friend in your circle at Holy Cross. And on top of that, it's nice because I found that you can talk to your advisor about anything from picking your classes to just like how your current classes are going and like how you're doing on campus. So it's great because you're able to have someone that will make sure that you're academically in check, but also check in on you to see how you're doing and just have a more one-on-one relationship than you would in the classroom. And plus, every single advisor, regardless of the department, is a professor that is just so motivated in what they do and what they practice. So you know that you're talking to someone that has a lot of great insights and advice in terms of what you're studying.
Callie, question for you from the Q&A. What was it like to transition from having a first-year advisor who was just assigned to you and then transitioning to having an advisor within your area of study as a bio major?
So my situation is a little unique because my advisor stayed the same through my first year and into the bio major. I will say that the advice changed a little bit though. So my first year advisor, she was more interested in trying to get me to explore different areas of study and make sure that I chose something that I was really interested in and checked in with me about different classes. Now that I'm declared a biology major, she's focused on making sure that I meet my requirements, making sure that everything fits into a nice timeline, and that I'm still fulfilling my common area requirements and studying some things that I want to study that are not just within the bio major. So I found that transition really easy. And it's actually interesting that your advisor's so tailored to what you're studying because they get to help you balance everything. So it's not just about fulfilling your major requirements, it's making sure that you are a well-rounded Holy Cross student and get the best education here that you can and explore all the areas of interest that you have that are outside of your major.
Let me ask you the question I asked Miley, and that was, what were your expectations for what college classes would be like? And how's the reality met with what your expectations were like?
Similar to Miley, my expectations were that it was going to be really hard, that the professors were kind of unreachable, and that you would have to fight your way to the top of the class if you really wanted to learn anything. And that has not been the case for me. A lot of my classes are small enough that I get to know all the students that are in my class and I get to know my professor. I found them to actually be quite manageable because you have a relationship with your professor and with your fellow classmates, and a lot of the workload is honestly not too bad either. And you get a lot of work, but you also get the time to do it, and you get a lot of support from your fellow students. My experience was a little strange. I started in COVID, so I had online classes for the first year of Holy Cross, but even through Zoom, I was able to form a relationship with a lot of my professors, and the classes themselves were much easier to handle than I expected. And your professor knows that you're coming from high school. So they're not expecting you to know exactly how a college class works. And they're not expecting you to be able to take your first college exam the way that a senior might. So they are meeting you halfway. They expect you to work hard, but they're also understand that you are all coming from different backgrounds of schooling.
And did you have, I was just sort of thinking more about what it's been like for you in such an unusual transition this semester being back on campus. Gosh, has there been something that some part that class has been a little bit more fun or enjoyable, or just being in person without the sort of the remote option, without the remote pressure and tension? What's that been like to be back on campus?
It's been so much better. I think like I liked Holy Cross online, but being able to walk into a classroom and sit near people and see your professor face to face just makes all the difference. And it's made it easier, actually. I feel like the learning component is so much easier and it's easier to focus, and your professor is really excited to be in person too. And just knowing that they're happy to be there makes you excited to be there too. And I don't know, I really enjoyed being on campus and being in person, even though it's kind of like being a freshman again, because we have to relearn everything. It's been really great.
Holly, as you probably know, Holy Cross attracts kids who have lots of different interests. I think you're one of those people. What's it like to balance scheduling your classes when you have a couple different interests and not just one single route for academics?
Right. So I think that when you get to Holy Cross, you don't expect to get involved in as much as you do. So I find that I try to pick my classes and pick exactly what I would like to do with my academic life, but then keep in mind that I'm going to have to balance whatever I do with other extracurriculars. So my involvements on campus, just to name a couple examples. So I'm here talking to you now. I am involved in admissions as a tour guide. So I have a tour guide slot once a week where I give tours. So that takes up an hour to like an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the tour I give. And then I do student theater. So, you know, I have practices for a show I'm doing. So that's another couple hours during the week. And then within my major, I'm involved in a couple things within the history department. So I have to keep on top of that as well. So in order to balance those two things, I find that just kind of getting on top of my schedule at the beginning of the semester is the best way that I kind of plan out the rest of my time during that semester in particular. So I'll get my syllabi right at the beginning of, like in this case, at the beginning of the fall, I got my syllabi, wrote down on my calendar, like important dates. And then I just have to keep in mind during the day when exactly I have free time versus when I have time I need to dedicate to my theater, admissions, history department related activities.
And Holly, I'm going to ask you a couple rapid fire follow-ups from the Q&A. How often do you meet with your advisor?
So I find that I have been meeting with my advisor for my major and then for my minor twice a semester to talk about academic related information. But then it really varies in terms of the semester. I find that I usually meet more with both of them just to talk about life and just checking in.
And one more follow-up here. What's been your experience with office hours, seeing professors outside of class?
Right. So even outside of my major, I found that it's really easy to access my professors. All professors at Holy Cross are required a couple office hours during the week. So it's great because if I have any sort of question, I can fit in a time to go and see my professor. And if I find that there's a scheduling conflict and my office hours do not align with what's going on with my classes or other activities, we can set up appointment slots with our professors as well.
I know when I was in high school, I had this sort of image of what college professors would be like, tweed jackets and elbow patches and spectacles down in the nose. You tell our attendees and tell me, what are college professors like? What are your college professors like?
Honestly, like none of my professors are how you described just now. Like none of them. One of mine comes in wearing a cowboy hat every day. They're all super sweet and like really willing to help their students, including me, obviously. I can tell that a lot of my professors are really invested in me as a person, and it's not just about the grade I'm having in the class, how I'm doing academically. Like, they care for my well-being too. It's not just about, am I getting my assignments done? I honestly can say genuinely, I love all of my professors. I've gone to their office hours just to chat, not even about homework related questions or exam related questions. So it's really clear that your professors want to get to know you and they're super happy to have you in the classroom.
Kelly, I know one of the questions that a lot of high school students wonder, and we have students here wondering tonight, is what's the workload like in college?
Yes, this is a question that I had coming into to school as well. The workload is a lot. I will admit that being a college student, you will have a lot of work, but something I have really found that's surprising to me is you have a lot of time to do it. So your professor isn't going to tell you that you have tons of assignments due and that everything is difficult and you're never going to have time to do anything else. You'll get all your assignments at the beginning of the year in a syllabus, and most of the workload is just studying and making sure that you can time manage. And I found that it's actually quite easy. There's a transition, especially in my first year of knowing how to manage your time, but the workload is very manageable. A lot of the professors are really good about giving you extensions if you need them, or if you're talking to them, you have a lot going on. And a lot of the students too are have the same types of workload. So you have a lot of support in your friend groups and in your peers. And I found that it's actually not too bad. And I've been able to manage it, and including extracurriculars and activities as well. You have a lot of time to do that. And you'll find that many Holy Cross students are involved in so many things and still are able to keep up with all their classes.
Holly, I have a great question for you from our attendees, and I'm not even going to paraphrase it. I think it's so great. I'm going to read it verbatim. Now that you spent some time in college, what advice would you give to a new college student about classes? What do you wish you had known before you started college class?
Yes, I agree. Really great question again. I think that the one thing I wish I knew going into college is that, yes, Holy Cross does have common area requirements, but they are fairly easy to get done during all 4 years at Holy Cross. Something that I did, which I kind of regret doing during freshman year, is that I wanted to get the natural science and math requirement done as soon as possible. So with the natural science math requirement, what you can do is either take 2 natural science classes, or you can take a natural science and a math. So what I did is that I decided to take Calculus 1 and a bio class in one semester to get that completed. And as I've been saying throughout the night, I'm a history major and I am a humanities person, tried and true. So like it was interesting getting that all done in a semester, and I would not want to wish that upon anyone who is like me. So I just say take freshman year to really explore what you want to do. You don't have to declare when you get into Holy Cross. Everyone goes in undeclared, and you have a while to declare. So just take classes that interest you in addition to what you're taking during your first year with your Modswat. And don't worry too much about the small stuff, because you have your advisors and a lot of other people that as you get going through Holy Cross will help you get everything done in time.
I know one of the biggest sort of shocks to the system when you come to college, especially as a first year student, is that in high school, you're basically in class all day. It's like nonstop class to class to class to class. And then when you get to college, that's certainly not true. Can you just like describe what a typical day is like for you? How much time are you in class? How much time are you out of class? And then like, what do you do when you're not in class?
I was really shocked because I found myself having a lot more time in my day than I obviously did in high school. So for me, like a typical day is I'll have class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday to like 12 p.m. only. And then on my other days, I'm done before 4 p.m. So in between classes, I'm either with my friends at Cool Beans or eating at the dining hall. But a lot of the time I like spending it in the library, just because it's in the science library specifically, just because it's AC in there, but also it's really calming just to be in there. It's a great environment. But there's a lot to do. I go to Cool Beans with my friends when I'm not busy, or I'll just walk around campus, honestly, because I haven't been there for the longest time. So for me, exploring campus and just walking around, going to the Joe, which is beautiful, by the way, is a great way for me to spend my time when I'm not doing homework.
Callie, I want to ask you the question I asked Holly about what advice would you give to a first year student? Maybe like, thinking about what you wish you had known when you entered Holy Cross or when you entered college.
Yeah. Some advice that I would give is just be open-minded. I definitely came into college thinking I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and those were the classes I was going to sign up for, and it was all going to be good. And it was, but I feel like some good advice would be to just relax, because everything will work out. And especially as a first year student, you have your entire college career ahead of you. So take what you want to take, and everybody's going to be there helping you and supporting you. And know that class doesn't have to be everything. Like during your college, you can do anything that you want while you're here. So don't get too consumed with the taking classes and what classes to take. And it has to be the same as your friend, and it has to be everything you want to do, you have to do in your first year, because you have a lot of time. And I think that everybody would do a little bit better to relax into it and really find something that you're passionate about. It'll make everything so much easier when you actually like what you're studying.
Holly, can you, we have a question here in the Q&A. Can you give us a sense of what exam week is like? What do you do that time, study week, exam week? What's it like to prepare for college exams?
Right, so exam week in both the fall and the spring semester are major weeks at Holy Cross, obviously. As soon as you get to the end of the semester, your classes will either have a final paper, a final project, or a final exam. I found that during all my time at Holy Cross, I haven't had more than 4 exams, but I mean, I've only been taking 4 classes, so that does make sense. There have actually been a lot of semesters where I found that professors actually try to do a final essay instead of an exam. So we do have a lot of flexibility in terms of that final week. But in terms of getting ready for finals, professors definitely do start to give students a heads up about the study guide for their exam, if that class will be having an exam, about a week and a half to 2 weeks in advance. And we do have a period of, I believe it's around like 4 to 5 days, where we have a review period. So what that means is that professors will keep their office hours open during that time, and students will just have those couple of days to prepare for when their exams do come up. And throughout the semester, I think that professors make it pretty clear, like if there is going to be an exam, what kind of information they will probably have on it. And my best advice for getting ready for exams is to just kind of be on top of your material throughout the semester, because regardless of whatever class you have the exam in, I found that professors really try to prepare their exams to tailor suit the material that they went through in the class, and they don't want to trick you, they want you to succeed.
Callie, I'm going to ask you the question that we've already covered a little bit, but can you just talk about like what your day's like? How much time are you in class? How much time are you out of class, and what you do when you're not in class?
Yeah, so most of my classes are every other day. They're either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. I'm done by 3:15 every day, and I don't start till 9:30 on some days, 11 on others. And I spend about 3 hours, like 3.5 hours in actual class during a day. On lab days, it's a little bit more. But then when I'm out of class, I'm studying, or I'm part of the orchestra. So I have rehearsal, or I work in the admissions as well. So I give tours. I'm actually part of a biochem research lab. So I get to go into the lab sometimes and just do some work in there. Definitely have a lot of time. That's why TAM management is everything, because you definitely will have a lot of time where you're not in class, but you'll be doing stuff for class, or you'll be involved in activities, and the time can kind of get away from you.
Callie, can you tell me briefly about the research project you're involved with?
Yeah, so I'm part of a biochem research lab that's looking at single-celled organisms and how they reproduce, and if we can alter their genetics to understand how they exist in extreme environments. I was involved in a first-year research program, so that's how I got into the lab. And now I can continue on with it if I want to. And so once a week I go in and I have a meeting with a professor who's also doubles as a second advisor for me. He gives advice about what classes to take and checks in with me. And then I get to be in the lab, and I'm learning lab techniques. I'm learning research techniques, learning how to what it means to give a presentation in a science topic, learning how to write research papers. And this is completely outside of any academic class. It's a additional thing. You work with a professor, asked to be part of their lab. In the summers, you can get paid for research there, but I'm currently doing it voluntarily in this professor's lab.
That sounds awesome. All right, Miley, last question of the night is for you. You chose Holy Cross. Like, we admitted you and you chose to enroll here. You've been a Holy Cross student now for about 5 weeks. I don't want to say, are you happy with your decision, but like, can you tell me how the expectations of what Holy Cross would be like have met with the reality of what Holy Cross is actually like?
Yeah, there are like a ton of reasons as to why I liked Holy Cross, but the one thing that really drew me in was just the community as in general. I feel like it is a very close-knit community and everyone is extremely welcoming and warm, which I think is super comforting and really great for someone who's transitioning, making such a big adjustment in their life into going into college. But I have found everyone on campus to just want to embrace me. Honestly, it makes me so happy. Like I can't even explain. Like everyone I've met is just so sweet and so willing to help me with anything. If I'm lost, no one's like ashamed. I don't have to be ashamed. They're all willing to tell me where it is, where everywhere is. But even now I'm back home for fall break and I'm really missing the hill, just seeing my friends and saying hi to those people on campus that I didn't think I'd ever be friends with.
That's great. Thanks so much to our panelists. You guys were awesome. Thanks for sharing some of your weekend with us. Thanks to your attendees. Please check out our webinar next weekend, next Sunday. What will I do for fun? What do Holy Cross students do for fun? Not that academics isn't fun, because I think you heard about a lot of fun tonight from our 3 panelists, but next weekend will be a little bit more about outside of the classroom fun. Thanks so much for coming. Stay safe, please. Stay sane and stay in touch. Thanks for coming.